All right, gonna get started here. Hey, I'm Jared Strickland with UT Extension here in Hardin County, and this evening I'm going to be discussing raised bed gardening on a beginner level. And let's just jump right into it. Some topics I'm going to be covering are the benefits and drawbacks of raised beds, how to select a site for your raised bed, soil type. We're going to look at some construction materials and installation. We're going to briefly discuss planning and the spacing for that. And we'll talk a little bit about the management of your bed. And then also at the end, we have some resources you can look back on after the webinar is over with and use that in the future for if you have any questions and give you a lot more details uh, at your convenience. So let's look at the benefits of a raised bed. Of course, one of the main ones I like about it is the accessibility. For one, you raise it up off the ground, so it's easier to manage as far as bending over and getting weeds out and planting, and you know you can even make them as tall as waist high, and that way you don't even have to bend over. You can stand up and manage your garden. Uh, Another benefit is you're going to grow this stuff in small spaces, so it if you don't have a lot of land or you're living on a even it could be down to even an apartment or even a small townhouse, you can still have a garden where you might not can get any equipment in or have much soil space there. Another advantage is this: you're raising it up off the ground, so the soil is going to warm a lot quicker. So you're looking at having an earlier planting season, and and it really extends the season compared to planting just directly in the soil. One thing that also is a good uh, thing about it is your drainage. Uh, you tend to get a better drainage source with the media you tend to put in a raised bed. Uh, Another great thing is no tillage. So if you don't have any equipment, say like a tractor for a garden plot in the backyard or a actual tiller, this is a good option for you. Uh, Definitely less weeds and they're easier to manage. And then of course you can, with us living in Tennessee, our soils are not that great, especially in our residential areas. So you're looking at a good way to improve the soil to get better crops out of your garden. But like with anything, if there's always advantages, there's also some drawbacks. Of course, you are going to be limited on your space, so your bigger plants may not be a good option for this. And on the flip side of having good drainage, it could drain too quickly, or it does drain quickly. So additional water is going to be a must. So you're going to have to water a raised bed. There's just no way to get around it. Uh, could be some more fertility requirements. Soil medias that you may be using for this may not have the fertility built in like our natural soils. Another problem you run into is diseases. When we're working a small space together like that, you've got your plants closer together. Might not have enough sun penetration, or it may stay a little wet close together there. So diseases can be an issue. And also depending on the size of your raised bed, uh, depth could be a restriction. Uh, so that's something also could be a drawback. So when we're looking at picking a site for a raised bed, uh, one of the main issues is going to be the sunlight. So your summer vegetables are going to need full sun. Most of those are going to require that. So you're looking at 6 to 7 hours of full sun. Uh, if you don't have that, that's not necessarily saying you can't have a raised bed. You may just have to look at changing some things up. So If you have more shade, you may have to look at doing maybe some more cool season type plants like leafy greens or something. Uh, they tend to do a whole lot better where there's sun, just a couple hours of the day. Uh, so also back to kind of what we were talking about on the size, depending on how much size or space you have, uh, you know, that's kind of what you need to decide. If you want to do a bigger one, you may need a bigger space in the yard to do that. Uh, Accessibility. This is really important. I think accessibility and water kind of go hand in hand there. You already know that we're going to have to water this garden, so you need a water source close by to the raised bed. So that's going to affect where you pick that site as well. Uh, and another thing will be the aesthetics. How's it going to look at your home place where you're putting it, or wherever the property is that you're putting the raised bed on? Uh, and they really make a nice addition, really, to a landscape. So uh, that's definitely a plus. So the first thing we need to figure out is what kind of soil that you have naturally there. Is it going to work for a garden or is it not? And more than likely, if you're looking at this webinar trying to learn more about this, you're probably already thinking your soils may not be up to par. So you're looking at a raised bed anyway because of your soil's not what you want it to be. So some desirable traits for soil, it needs to be fertile. We need to have the nutrition for the plants there. Well drained is another key ingredient for a good soil. Standing water is not good for plant health. It leads to diseases, drowns out things like that. So well drained is a good thing. Medium textured and sandy loam is kind of considered ideal. It drains well and typically has a good fertile and good medium texture to it. Undesirable soil traits would be high clay content, and here in Hardin County, it's that's pretty much what we got. So so it's going to be hard. There's not going to be as many places that have the great soil as you think. But anyway, uh, typically high clay content soils they drain poorly or they don't even infiltrate water very well either. And one indication of that might be if after it rains, the soil crusts over and gets hard, cracked, stuff like that. That's a good indication of the soil is not very good. Uh, you don't want rock or gravel in there, and it's hard to work. It's hard. It's a hard soil, and clay can be that way when it dries out. It clods up and doesn't break down good, and it's doesn't have that good texture that you would like. So it's real common to mix the soil with the other soilless medias that you could use. Say, and one way of looking at it is by volume. You're going to do 1 part soil and a part compost or peat moss or something like that, and then 1 part for vermiculite or perlite. You go mix this by volume, and or the bed can be completely a purchased soulless mix. So if the soil is not any good, you may want to go that route. And it may be easier to go that route because if you're going to raise it up, you're going to actually have to add soil to that. So it may not be practical to dig it up or something like that. So you may actually purchase some soil from a reputable place or your local garden store, and then do this mix here. So the materials for a raised bed can really be anything that'll hold soil in. And I kind of put this picture on here I thought was kind of funny. You got cinder blocks and uh, they're repurposing those swimming pools there. And if you really look at that, there's not much money tied up into that uh, those raised bed or technically, I guess you could consider those container gardens, but it's it can be done with whatever that'll hold it. So, but some common materials, of course, are going to be untreated or treated wood. Your treated wood's going to last longer, but you can use untreated wood. Uh, cross cross ties or landscape timbers make really good materials. They last a long time. And if you're not looking for one that's raised bed that's real deep, that would be a real way, a quick, easy way of making a raised bed garden real fast. Concrete blocks, as you see in the picture there, composite materials of any kind. You get at the your hardware stores or garden stores, and then of course plastic would be a good way of holding in. Uh, a couple not listed on here. Livestock tanks or something like that might be a good way of doing it too as well. So when it gets to insulation, we've kind of have an idea of how high we want to do it, because we're trying to, we need to select what crops we want to do. We're kind of thinking about our spacing, and we've decided that what soil we're going to go with, and we've looked at materials, and we got to think about our management. So we go ahead and we put it together, and we're ready to plant. So when you're planting, moisture considerations is very important. So you're looking at, you don't want it to be too wet or too dry. It needs to be kind of just right. And of course, and that's something we're about to talk about, is the spacing. You need to plan this out, and you really need to plan this out before you even construct the bed, because kind of give you an idea of, you need to have, if you have a goal of certain things you will plant, you need to know how big it needs to be anyway. So, um, but here are some examples, all the way down to just some stuff that only needs to be a couple inches apart, all the way up to more than 18 inches apart. And like I said, bigger plants don't do as well in the raised bed situation. But you can see here, there's all kinds of plants that's going to do well. And just for example, if you want to plant some beans or carrots, they only have to be a couple 2 to 4 inches apart between the seeds or plants, and all the way up to tomatoes are a real popular plant. So, but they need to be 18 inches or so apart. So if you're doing several tomato plants, you may have to have a pretty good sized bed. This kind of looks a little. Gives it a little different perspective as far as how many plants per square foot. So I'll at the end of this, I'll give you some resources where you can look these up and actually take online and look back at these. That way you can, as you're planning, you'll be able to remember or have a list of how what you want to, how far apart everything needs to be. Now that we have it planted, we're going to have to manage this. So we need to know what our water source is, what kind of pressure this has, and we got to decide what method we're going to use. Are we just going to use a regular garden hose, or we're going to use a drip line, or we're going to use a soaker hose? And then we also need to look at how we're going to support the crop. A lot of vegetables need a type of cage or stakes. Panels may be necessary, or some type of netting to hold those crops up. And of course, we got to look at fertilization. What type of fertilizer we're going to use? We're going to use a granular fertilizer. They have those soluble type ones you use through the water. Or are you going to use a type of compost or some type of organic source? And another recommendation with that on the fertilization is to take a test. The soil and pest lab here at Nashville, You can look them up online there. We can send in these samples and give us a recommendation for what crops we have that we have planted or are going to plant, and then put a put a recommendation in on that and give us the proper amount of fertilizer we need for the to put for the garden. A couple things to remember long term wise for the raised beds is we need to rotate those beds as far as what crop we're putting in there every year. It's a good way to manage for diseases. And then over time, of course, we're probably going to have to add more substrates to that raised bed. And then, of course, material may degrade over time as well, especially when you're looking at the wood type raised beds. The plastic ones will probably last a while too, but they'll eventually degrade some in the sun. So that's something to remember. Over time, we'll have to do some maintenance and repair to that. So just to finish up, here's some resources that you can look at. uthort.com would be a good bookmark for anybody that's a garden enthusiast. There's all kinds of resources on there. But I pulled a lot of this information from these three publications we have here: the Raised Beds 346, and these are two others. The Garden Planning one is a good one as well. And so I would definitely look these up. Then you go back to those, and it'll really help you hash things out if you've got any questions. You can always call your local extension agent and get some more information from them as well. And anyway, I think that's going to wrap things up. Are there any questions? I hear none. All right.